Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you.
I'm excited
And
too.
yeah, and like you and your little triad too. I wonder what y'all been going through.
Some
Because I know
magical
y'all,
shit.
isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all kinds of shit. It's the shit too, but it's almost like water on a duck's back. I mean, it's there, but it's more of an observation mode, and it's like, yeah, like it's you almost move to like, why is this coming up again, and then going, why do I need to know? Just let that
Yeah.
shit go. Let it go. All right, I'm going to play the intro so we can give people a little bit of time. Yeah,
Okay, perfect.
be right back.
Okay.
All right. Alicia Younghall's in the house, so we're going to get an update on Gene Keys. I saw a post you put up saying you were going to be chilling, and I saw somewhere in there you said you might spit something out, so we might see some of that. And I saw something the other day where you've been doing, and I get mixed up because you and Candace both do videos, quite a few videos, but I think you were reading out of something. I never heard it before. That was you, right?
Yeah, the Telectanon prophecy.
Is that like associated with the Toltecs, or what is that?
Yeah, with the Mayan, but it's kind of a continuation. So it's like, oof, so much has happened since the last time we connected. It's been a little bit of a whirlwind. It's been like I've been taken over by this higher consciousness or something. But um, the Telectanon is it's kind of like all the prophecies converging into one prophecy, and there's a continuation of the Mayans from like the traditional Mayan to the Galactic Mayan that Jose Arguelles was bringing in when he brought in the harmonic convergence in 1987, and he was here to kind of advance planetary consciousness and bring peace on Earth and unity and all of that. And so it seems that I've caught the planetary consciousness bug, and it's pulled me into these synchronicities in this matrix, this thing right here, which a lot of people have probably seen, called the Zolkin, or you could also call it like the galactic butterfly, something like that. And so, yeah, I've been playing with this quite a bit. Like we all have a code in here, and it's beyond the gene keys, and yet it also merges the gene keys. So what I'm seeing it like is when this came in, I mean, I'd known about this, and I also knew I was the 144 yellow magnetic seed kin. And the 144 happens to be one of the kins that unlocks the prophecies. So
Mm.
this whole last 6 months has been about like seeing a convergence of all of the prophecies, kind of revelations, right? We all know revelations, and that's kind of happening. And it doesn't have to happen the way that it sounds like in the book necessarily, but the Cathar prophecy, the eagle and the condor prophecy, the
Now
Quetzalcoatl prophecy.
the eagle and the condor. Where did that come from? I've heard that one.
That one comes from Ecuador and has to do with the merging of the head and the heart, but it's
Right,
also
right.
about like South America and North America. And what we've been learning here is that Costa Rica is like the complete 0 point of the North and the South.
Wow, wow.
And so that's what we've been holding here, that I'm now understanding is the 0 point field for the last few years, and really embodying this to kind of bring in whatever we're all walking into right now. It's like I think I've been a little bit far into the future, kind of like holding it. We
Mm-hmm.
have been, and I mean, just the whole process that we've gone through. In fact, to bring in an interesting synchronicity, 3 years ago today, I moved into this, or I went to go visit this community that we came to visit with my family, that I ended up a couple weeks later meeting Eduardo, and everything just went right. And it was
3
three
years
years ago
ago
today.
today.
And
Holy shiitake
I
mushrooms,
have to
man.
tell you something else that's really interesting. This is a crazy tattoo story, okay? And admitting something funny and interesting all at the same time. When David and I got married, we got married in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico in 2008. And I don't know why we had the idea to get these like Roman numeral tattoos on our body of our wedding date, which was June 28th. Well, when we got done, like 2 or 3 days later, someone pointed out to us that the date was incorrect. Like the dude forgot to put one of the X's, one of the Roman numerals. So instead of it being,
Oh shit!
so
It
instead of
was
it
June
being,
18th.
and that's today. And so I have a tattoo of today, and it's a 13-year cycle. And there's a thing in the Galactic Matrix about 13-year cycles. Like there's some crazy synchronistic type of shit going on right now. And
Wow.
it has a lot to do with, like, Jose Arguelles created this because it has to do with galactic telepathic communication from higher sources. And so when you decode this matrix, you start to really expand on some understanding of what's really happening here. And the trick is the only matrix we ever need to step out of is the time matrix. And this is what Jose was kind of bringing, is that we were put into the time construct that the Romans came up with, which then equated to taxes and money and death and all of this. And right. And so we have been in this inorganic 12-month matrix with this uneven amount of days per month, 28 days here, 29, 30, 31. And so it confuses the system and it gets us out of the natural flow. And so it's really about unlocking and learning how to live in that 13-month going by 28-day cycles, because that's how the ancestors did it. That's how the indigenous did it, right? If there's a full moon today, we know in 28 days there's a full moon again, and we live by the light in the sky, not so much by what a man has created for us. And so it's about like breaking down that time matrix. And when you do that, you kind of dissolve out of that reality or that dimension, because time is a dimension, and you move into more of a timeless quantum type of reality where everything is magic and synchronicity, and you never have to make a plan again, and you just watch all that unfold.
There's no doubt that time is a big domino, like death, maybe the biggest one. I don't know, but yeah, I was when I went to bed last night or this morning, because I'm not able to sleep much anymore. I went to sleep. I mean, I laid down and connected, and we all do our own thing, and I just kind of started this Q&A or communion with the universe, and I said, okay. And of course, in my field of consciousness, or where I was coming from, it was me, and it was me and Morgan, and what we've downloaded, that's galactic, and how does it feel at the human? So everything was there, and I said, okay, I got this. The time thing, I get. Like I'm getting more and more comfortable with that. Like I'm detaching from it. And I said, we had a little conversation, confirming it or just reaffirming. And then I said the space thing. Well, we've already had 2 situations where you would have to say it was a physical teleportation of some sort, right? And I'm thinking, okay, where does space land with that? So I'm just curious as to what you think, because I'm with you on the time thing, and I'm with you on the space thing. It makes sense, but what I got back last night was like, well, space is a little bit different. You're everywhere all the time, and you can be there all the time. And that's a little different, like say the next year's course in uni. I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, right away, you're kind of bringing up something I want to cover with Gene Key 60. And I have to give a shout out to Unity Grace, because she was bringing this in a couple years ago. And it was, now's the convergence of what's really going down. It's like she was paving the way in this type of understanding.
She's one of those, been out there a long time.
Yeah, and she's been bringing it in. I have deep gratitude for her.
Yeah,
so
she's a
she feels
special
like a sister
lady
for me.
We hooked up with her in Kauai. She came over there. I was walking down the street and this car pulled up next to me. It was her and this other chick.
That's how the synchronicities work, right? It's crazy.
Right? Yeah.
So the thing that we're talking about here has to do with gene key 60, and it's called the Earthship Merkaba, and it's talking about the cracking of the vessel, and it's talking about the light body and the chariot of light, and it's talking about breaking out of the binary structure into the triple helix, the trinary, getting out of the binary into the trinary. Even the divine union is not really two, it's three. And so
that's right.
That's kind of what we've been doing here. And so I just want to read this to help everyone understand what's happening on a collective level, because this is the true judgment day. And we have to break beyond the limitations of the mind of what we think we are. And this has a lot to do also with examples of like Babaji that could materialize and dematerialize, and many of the masters that have done this, and remembering that we are all the masters, right? This isn't just a limited thing for a few people here. It's for anybody that understands and remembers who we are. So it says, when the 60th city begins to ignite in multiple beings, which it has now, absolutely, it will be the ending of the world as we know it. Everything will indeed be revealed in its true sense. The laws that hold together the earth will crack, and our planet will begin to transmute. The 60th city has been known by certain esoteric schools as the Merkaba, or chariot of light. The true collective Merkaba is the earth herself, the spirit of Gaia. When the earth disappears, it will do so suddenly, and all the cells, which is all of us, that have held the consciousness that we call Gaia, will move to another reality. Only then will we really know what divine justice means, and it will have no meaning whatsoever on an individual level. We have absolutely no idea what this event will look like or feel like, but those with the 60th city hold the key to this ultimate magical occurrence. And we should remember that from the point of view of the 60th city, this has already occurred. Every human being knows this is our future, as it lies secretly encoded in the deep limitation of our material DNA. However, certain divine laws conceal those higher aspects of our own nature from our view. We have to finally evolve to be able to see them, and the two great laws we must evolve beyond are gravity and time. These two laws are not absolute, but completely relative to awareness. The binary helix of our DNA is microcosmically composed out of these two laws. DNA holds memory, and it acts as the living, evolving local structure for sentient life. Evolution demands time, and localization demands space. When awareness passes beyond these two laws, they are seen not as false, but as lower frequency signatures of higher divine laws. Beyond our human form, other realities and dimensions exist. The cosmos is teeming and abundant with interdimensional life forms. In more advanced forms of life, the mirror of DNA is no longer a binary structure, but a trinary helix. The triple helix unites all beings beyond space and time and frees awareness to travel unimpeded throughout the cosmos. However, the triple helix cannot support a carbon-based life form. It requires a far subtler structure or vehicle, the underlying geometry of the universe itself. So,
man, that's some deep, on point stuff. Even like the last part, which there was so much said, but like that triad energy, trinity energy, trinary. Yeah, it can't operate in the density of our bodies, which is part of the reason we're purging now physically, in the same way we did emotionally, mentally, programming. I mean, it's all related, but yeah, that's very cool.
yeah.
So, and it talked about the Merkaba, whatever you call it. And that was another thing. See, there's no coincidences. That's another thing that happened last night. Now, we've obviously talked about the light body experiences that we've had, Morgan and I. And, but last night, something happened for the third time. And the one time it happened in Hawaii with me and her, we went into this monad. And what it was like the body itself, that time it was the hips down, felt like concrete. And the light body left. And there was an experience. At least that's how it went for me. I think hers was the same. And then it happened about 10 days ago where I could feel myself coming out of the body, but I couldn't sustain it because it was really weird the way it came in. But last night, when I was having that conversation, I guess I was at some level thinking I'm going to travel to her. my whole body, this time it was my whole body, got like concrete. And I could feel, I've had a couple of out of body experiences, or you might call near death experiences, and very similar, but it wasn't the same thing. It was like leading to that. And I wonder if that's what he's referring to in what you just read, if that's part of the what's coming.
Yeah, I think so. And, we talk about this going from carbon to crystalline. And what I'm being shown now is, that to get to that perfected diamond state or that crystalline state, it was coal and it was like this carbon structure. So I see like our attachment to the traumas, the fears, the identity, the personal importance are the carbon that we are here to release. And there's like, we're kind of coming to a point where we're tasked. We're either getting our ass kicked because we're not letting go, or we're letting go. Like it's one or the other, right? Like we're either getting dragged and holding onto the truck as it's pulling us because we don't want to
Yeah.
and
Let
getting
go,
all
be
bloody
dragged.
and shit,
Yeah.
or we let go and we look at what's taking place and what's going on, and we kind of face that darkness, and we understand like that walking through the fire. So to kind of get to that crystalline structure, and the way that I'm seeing it is, removing. I keep drawing this over and over again in many of the ways that many calls that I do. And of course, so we know this lower self is connected with different chakras. So we've got the 0 to 7 years old, the 7 to 14, the 14 to 21, and then we've got the heart. And so we're seeing this area as the subconscious patterns, fears, attachments, the traumas, the shadows, all of that. Honestly, I see it as the entire human self, the entire identity, your name. We know the ego is not a bad thing. That's the problem that some of us have had, is not being able to own it and accept it and then to merge it together. Because if we can look down at these and open our heart to all the situations and really our group karma that we chose to experience before we came here, if we can remember that that's the case. So when we can come down here and see all of this has happened, and then we can open the heart, then what it allows us to do is this quantum like gravity, or what I like to call a quantum gravitational pull, that takes this crystalline structure, our highest aspects of the divine angelic master self, galactic self, Christ consciousness self, and allows it to come into the physical form. But when we're holding on to this, we can't really do it. We can't bring this in. And so it's that like cutting us out of this loop and this cycle of replaying this story. And so I want to share this transmission that I got, because these are called the stories. I like to say, I don't want to be insensitive about this, but the thing is, we've kind of held on to this for so long, and all we need to do is like finally heal it, resolve it, face it in the self to bring this.
Well, I mean, like the story, I get what you're saying. Like you don't want to be disrespectful to the stories, but at the same time, you've got to own this higher perspective. And by putting the stories in its proper place, that can be and is very sacred. I mean, that's
it's sacred.
It came to me the other day because somebody had put up a post about about these programs, the shadows, what you're talking about, and I said, and he was talking about releasing it. I said, for me, it's gotten to a point now where I'm not releasing it. I'm actually owning it, and it's like stored knowledge. So it's like what you said about the ego and the lower frequencies or lower signatures. I like the way you said that, the lower signatures of the higher reality or the higher absolutes. But that like it is the experience that we have that's unique to us for those of who walk the earth. And you're saying we're basically merging those in the heart, right?
Yeah, we have to remember who we really are and why we came here, that we created our reality. And like we have to go from the highest aspect of the self to remember that, or else we fall into the victim stance and the separation. We're here to heal the wound of separation and remember our unity and our oneness. And so when there's still a perpetrator, when there's still duality, we're going from duality to trinity, right? And so with duality, there's still a good and a bad and a right and a wrong and a light and a this and that. And so we're merging it all together into like a triple, right? And so that's it's honoring what happened, and it's also about remembering we're multidimensional beings. And as we start to really touch and scrape and open up these higher dimensional realities, Gaia has ascended beyond this now, and so we're the only ones holding her back. We're the only ones holding a planetary ascension back by holding on to the density, by holding on
Yeah.
to the stories. So the song that I came up with, and I recommend it for anybody that's going through this, because as the stories would come through my head, whatever they are, one day I could feel this story coming through my head, whatever it was, and I could feel how it would feel in my body, which was activating chemicals in my body. And then I just heard, leave the stories behind to unlock the gates. You're not trying to happen, but you're leaving them behind to unlock the gates, because we're remembering that we're quantum creators here, and that everything we focus on or that's unconscious that we haven't seen, we're constantly recreating in the reality. It's a hologram,
Right
it's a
on.
projection,
Right
right?
on.
So
Right on.
the song is, leave the stories behind to unlock the gates. 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 Unlock the gates. Unlock the gates. And what I was being shown is that the gates are the gates of heaven, the gates of our divine essence of who we truly are. Like, our heart is the only thing keeping it closed. Our third eye is only as open as our heart is open, right? So this is the gate right here. And so in order to really open this gate fully, which is what we came here to do, is to learn how to love and accept and find compassion for all experiences and all people, we've got to leave these stories behind to unlock the gates. And that brings us into the unity and the unity consciousness, and ultimately opens us up beyond like our individual karmic blueprint, because it opens us up beyond like our individual codes in astrology or in the gene keys or anything like that, into more of a group codes. You're all the codes, you're all 64 codes. It's beyond like the individual aspect, and yet you still get to be your individual aspect here.
Yeah. 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 This is the real stuff. I mean, so I got this download. I spent an hour and a half the previous evening talking to Franco privately. He stayed in the condo, him and Kimberly. And the next day I got this download. So without getting into the guts of the story or the context in terms of the story, I received this download walking back from the store. And it's a lot like what you're talking about. It was, kind of in the realm of what I do and in my space or my part of this, or my piece of the jigsaw puzzle. It had to do with frequency and vibration and resonance and code. And it was basically showing me how when somebody is exhibiting what I would call transparency, because it's beyond vulnerability, it's just pure transparency, that it's now being received by those who observe as quantum creators. And we're at such a level of having gained a higher perspective and embodying it, that what's happening now is they're actually kind of equalizing with it, seeing it in its purity and reflecting it back almost at an unconscious level with that mix, right? With that mix or that merging of, let's say, one and one, because one's collective but one's an individual, but it's still all the same, and hits the transmitter, which in the example they were showing me was Franco. And what happens is that also the transmitter is in that pool of higher perspective embodied, and they receive it, which is almost like something we haven't been able to do because of our self-worth, self-value. They receive it at such a level, it creates another triad or a trinary frequency or explosion, and it's total healing, alignment. I mean, it's like you don't have to do a process or a modality. You can, but it's this non-verbal kind of thing, even if words are being spoken, that is just lighting everybody up, and it's growing very rapidly. So it's very much like what you said. And that's another thing about what you said too, with what you were talking about with that Mayan thing, is that I do see, and I think a lot of people see, a convergence of everybody's intel and post and timing and feelings and experiences.
Yeah, they're starting to get more collective, right? Like, it'll be really interesting to see what somebody might throw out there, and to feel like, man, I just received a very similar download, because we're kind of dancing in these unified fields of consciousness now. There are no original thoughts. And that's part of our individual self too, kind of letting go of the personal importance here. We're tapping into a monad consciousness, right? And so
Yeah.
nobody's stealing information. We're all just kind of processing it and digesting it. And I keep hearing over and over again, embodiment is the healing chamber. And so it's like when you can embody this truth, we can hear it and we can know it, but to truly embody it means that we're kind of recreating neural pathways and leaving those things behind and holding that transparent field. It obviously keeps us in a maintained, healed field. We no longer need to run around looking for reasons to heal ourselves too. And even like you said, as things come through, you look at them like this is multidimensional experiences. And so when something comes up, it comes up and you look at it and you face it and you love it and you embrace it. And you swallow it up into the light, really. Like that's the thing is not fearing the death and the transparency about being crystal clear, being wide open, having nothing to hide from yourself or anyone. And, you know, in some of my sessions I've been doing with people, I'll just tell them like, listen, if you'd like to, I'm right here. And feel free to share any of your worst thoughts about yourself, any of your guilt, any of your shames, any of your biggest fears, any of the ways that you think within your mind that you judge about yourself that you have a hard time accepting or accepting that they are you. Like any bad thing you've ever, perceived bad thing you've ever done in your life that you just can't get over or whatever. Like if you'd like, I'll just sit here and kind of let you, it's almost like a confession, except like to allow someone to be able to say whatever it is and not hold on to stuff anymore. Right.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. You know, there's a couple things. Well, for one, when I met Morgan, that's what happened. You know, I mean, just in a series of, you know, we started talking to each other every day on the phone, and I did that. That was the only space I could do it in, and I knew it about myself, but I had to say it in this openness, right? So that I get that, and then the other thing is what you were talking about. I mean, since I met her, she was always talking about nothing means anything till you embody it. And then in the work I do, I noticed that myself, you know, I'd go back and see something that I wrote or did a video a year before, and I look at myself and go, oh, well, you pulled it in, but you hadn't embodied it. You know what I mean? And now I have.
Yeah.
And so like about a week ago, I was like, you know, I think what's changed now, and it's not just for me, because as individual goes, so goes a collective, right? I mean, is that it used to be embody, share, download, share, embody. And now it's like download, embody, share. And it was so cool because it may be what triggered it in me. My friend Ty Hudnall, who's a African shaman and all kinds of master musician in Sedona, he said, you always know when it's pure. And I'm probably getting his words wrong. When it comes in, because it's, you know, when you've embodied it, I guess is what he's saying, because it's immediately shareable at the same frequency. Like if you pull something in and then, you know, you go, oh, okay, well, I've got to get it out there. Immediately it starts to diminish, you know, as the human gets involved, so to speak. But when you actually embody something, it's immediately shareable. And I think in many ways, not just in an explanation, but in just the frequency you're carrying.
Yeah. And, you know, getting past, like getting crystal clear with right now, we're in Gene Key 12 and 11, and it's talking about transcending duality and even transcending the emotional and the mental plane. And so when we do that, we become a crystal clear channel directly to source consciousness, because we know and we remember we're not separate. So everything that's coming through, you can trust. You've cleared your own distortions through your experiences. Right. And you have to be honest with yourself to be able to get to that point. But where the silence isn't, you're sitting in a meditation for hours. I'm silent all the time until a transmission comes through. And then sometimes I'll go into that, like, you know, the rapid fire where they'll be like, every day is different and what's coming through, but you just kind of input it into, and, you know, we all have a job in the galactic matrix too. And so one of my jobs as the seed is to open the portals and to input the information into the cells. And so, advancing the planetary consciousness is one of the roles. So we all have a role there. We'll have to find out what yours is at some point. I'd be curious to see, because it's interesting to find out everybody's galactic codes.
How do you find out?
Well, you go to, hold on, I'll check yours out if you want to, if you feel like telling me your birthday.
I got thrown off for a second because I screwed up the schedule.
Okay. Oh, you did?
Franco's coming on. I just want to check what I had. Let's see.
Okay. Hold on. I'm going to pull this up and see who you are here.
So what do you go by? Date or name?
Yeah.
Or
what's your birthday?
12/9/61.
Okay. Hold on a second.
Let's see. Calendar.
I go to the Law of Time Decoder if anybody wants to look that up. You said 12/9/61?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm an old guy.
Nah. You're timeless, dude. We
That's
are
I know.
quantum time travelers. We are quantum time
Oh yeah,
travelers.
yeah. I'm with you on that.
That's what I'm starting to realize. It's like, you know, what I've been doing since I kind of completely stepped out of the dimension of time, and it really had to do when Wind River arrived. Ever
Uh huh.
since she came, well, that's a whole nother story about like walk-ins and higher states of consciousness and how that can happen and come in. But because I feel like I had to have a surgery with her, and whatever happened during that experience was a very similar type of experience I had with my near-death experience with my son, which
Right.
was a higher presence of consciousness coming through the vessel, like a complete shift in awareness. So anyways, you were born in the yellow galactic seed year. You're kin 32, yellow rhythmic human. I organize in order to influence, balancing wisdom. I seal the process of free will with the rhythmic tone of equality. I'm guided by my own power doubled. So it's so deep how you can go into this stuff, but you even have a specific location that your energy kind of tethers to or holds. For example, like with yours, you would be located. They have what's called the planet Holon. So you're a yellow human. So you're actually connected to me over here, kind of in the South America thing over here. I'm a yellow seed.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this backwards. I'm a yellow seed, so I'm down here. I'm connected to the root. You're connected to the heart and the core. And so we all kind of have a place here that we're handling. Like, for example, mine in the gateway is about unlocking the secrets of Atlantis and Lemuria, working with Antarctica. And so we all kind of even have an energy that we have a zone that we're kind of deeply connected to beyond where we are in the physical. It's pretty holographic and galactic.
Right on. So somebody's asking, and I'm asking too. What's the name of that site?
Lawoftime.org, and if you Google Law of Time decoder, you can put in your birth date and find out your signature.
Okay, law. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah, thanks
Law
for putting that
of
down.
Time decoder.
That prophecy is on there, and so this prophecy has a lot to do with the 7 sacred seals and the 144,000, and so that type of information is coming through many, sources. And the Gene Keys talks about the 7 sacred seals and the activation of the Corpus Christi, of the rainbow body, and the 144,000. And so the Telectanon prophecy that I was reading the other night, which you can find for free on here, is on that site as well. There's tons of
Okay.
data and information, but is that's what it feels like. What I've been assisting with over the last 6 months. It's been like this whirlwind of knowing what I'm supposed to do every single day. And it's walking people through these, healing the wounds, healing the human wounds, and
Right on.
understanding that they're collective and not so individual and personal, and that it was coded in the DNA and it was stored in the
Yeah.
blood, in the can objectively look at these experiences without taking them personal, that allows you to transcend them, accept them, and kind of move on into the higher spheres of reality.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. It's putting it out there. I mean, I've been saying for a while, we've got enough information. I love the way you explain it because it is collective. Like there's nothing, you can look at it 2 different ways. There's nothing out there that's not me. And
Right.
I am, I wrote the other day, unity consciousness is attained when you understand that I am the only separation possible. So on one hand, you've got these things out there going, I'm having to work with you and see myself in you or see us as equal. But if you flip it around which is to me, I am soul, which is, I'm not afraid to show my ass, which is, I'm like everybody else, which is the frequency that I see that is the most effective for like code exchanges, people just being themselves, like you said. And you look at it from a collective standpoint, and it becomes less drudgery and more of, oh, this is work in the best of sense. This is why we're here. Like, it's just a flip of the switch. It's, I can look at it this way or I can look at it that way. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great explanation. Thank you.
Yeah, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, right? So when we look at it from the individual human perspective, all these things have happened to us, and why did that happen? And we have characters within that play. But then when you remember that you are consciousness itself, source consciousness itself, you observe the entire experience with neutrality. And so It's why we came here. This is what a true light worker is. You're doing light work within yourself. We can really externalize it and be like, I'm a light worker, but the light work is something that we're doing within the self that literally just like lights the planet on fire through the waves, the vibrations and the energies.
That's right.
And enough of us remembering who we are is how we kind of pull the entire field. We remove the gravitational pull of these stories. We remove the gravitational pull of, you could say, the moon, the emotions, the I keep hearing this about demagnetizing. You turn the magnets off, so everything that's been magnetized to you, you just stop the magnet for a minute. Then you move up a higher sphere because you feel lighter, because we know magnets are kind of heavy, the weight. And so we release it, and then we move up to the higher sphere, which I'm calling the heart resonance. And then we turn the magnetics back on again, and we trust the magnetics. Everything that is coming to us is within that heart resonance. So we just have to get to heart resonance. If we're in the lower resonance, we're going to continue to bring in the lower resonance reflections. And that's the challenge, right? When we do start to say, okay, I am identified with the one and the all, right? And the soul. What's interesting about that is sometimes when we don't like what we see out there, then we're like, no, okay, never mind. This is your problem over here. You're being a dick. You're being this, whatever it is. Right? Project it all out there. And so the thing is, we have to get really real with ourselves when we see something we don't like out there, and remember that that also is us. And it's just integrating all the aspects of yourself. I always say, like, you got to integrate your aspects first, and then you can integrate the reptilian, and you can integrate the bad guy, but that is the job, right? To integrate all of the pieces back into the self if you're going to take on this higher perspective of consciousness. And yet again, your sovereignty is that you get to choose, but ultimately I think we're all dying inside for that freedom, like to be free and to feel light, and like remember that bliss and ecstasy and freedom are our natural states. And so if we're not there, it's fine. Be gentle with yourself, but ask yourself why you're not there yet, because we're beyond linear time here. And so the idea that we put a limitation that it's going to take a certain amount of time for us to walk through the fire is an illusion. And ultimately we're able to, once we walk through that fire, facing our shadows, facing our dark, facing our fears of death and all of the separation, all of that, we realize what a joke it all is, how serious we've taken it, and the fear that we've had to really face it and walk through it and own it. And we realize once we finally walk through it, it's like taking one of those deep breaths where you're just like, it's everything's good.
The unbearable lightness of being, right? I mean, it's there. You're right. That happened to me when I left Sedona and went through kind of a purge, or whatever you call that. And 20 minutes out of Sedona, it all came out, and I felt like I was in a spaceship. I was in the bus, and I'm like, wow, it's getting dark. I'm in the mountains, but that's I think coming on board more and more, that feeling, that unbearable lightness of being. It's we're getting used to some of this stuff, but I really like your perspective and explanation on how we're looking at that which got us here. It's if you pull up, for instance, an old trauma or something or anything, if you want to test yourself, go back to a certain age. What's your body telling you? What are you feeling? And I think for me, I've been spending, and it's only really been unconscious, spending time with my 4 or 5-year-old kid, my inner child, which isn't something I've done a lot of, I guess in conventional ways, but it's that frequency's changed. There's different sensations in the body. There's a freed up kind of a cellular network freeing up and lighting up, and a lot of this has gotten kind of physical.
Well, we're using the power of the sun and these upgrades and the Schumann resonance and the power of water and getting in water and getting in nature. We use these aspects to assist us with this process of embodying all the aspects of the self. And what I've been telling people is, it's like, pay attention to where you still have energetic debts. And where those things are because you feel them like chemicals in the body. And Joe Dispenza talks about this. When you feel the chemicals release in the body, it's like you're experiencing the trauma again. It does the same thing in your body as when you were in it in the physical. So we're identifying those places where we still feel that punch in the gut, that constriction in the chest. Like, where are those remaining energetic debts that we have with any other being in any other situation that's ever happened to us? And can we bring us back into resonance with the heart, opening the heart, loving and accepting, and remember that we're the ultimate creator here, and there's no separation between me and whatever character is within that story that's making us feel this energetic debt, because we're just giving that energetic energy away from feeling home and remembering who we are, because we're playing in the game of separation. And so what I would start to play with is, I would, if I'd feel something, for example, you know, and by the way, my children arrive tomorrow. David's bringing them in to come visit and stay with me. I haven't seen my daughter in almost a full year, which is freaking me, because I've had a baby. Wow. And, you know, the whole COVID thing, it's flown by. And but you know, I remember being at the river one day, and I remember like judging myself. I started to have this judgment come through, like, man, and a lot of what's come up this year is about healing the wound of the mother, which we all have the wound of the mother, that separation consciousness. We all have a belly button, right? Which is the scar, the physical representation of being taken from the mother and separated. We all have one, male or female. And so we're healing the wound of the mother. And so I was in the river, and I was having these emotions, and this judgment came in, like, man, you know, you haven't seen kids in this amount of time. And like, I bet you're a terrible mother. And so it's interesting. My mind was thinking that, like, my kids are doing fine. They're having a blast. Like, everything's good. But I felt this thing come in. And then I said, wait a minute. Am I separate from my children? Am I separate from anyone? Where is this really coming from? Like, I know I am connected to my children even more than most of us can sometimes grasp. Like, my children are me, in fact. And so when I brought that separation back inside me, I healed that wound. I could feel that I remembered that they were me, and I remembered enough to embody it. And then I started to see what that felt like, which was like total freedom and a massive density shift. And so I was looking for areas in my life where I still felt that there might be a story of separation, which means go look for the people that you still haven't forgiven, or you're holding something against, or you're judging, right? And I just went and I brought all those aspects back into myself, and felt like I really brought myself into complete wholeness with all beings. And there's never anything to take personal again. There's never anything to, these are neural pathways. These are old stories that are keeping us from ascending. And ascension means we got to move up the sphere of reality. And so we've got to let go of dead weight in order to do that. We've got to die. This is what death really is.
Exactly. That's exactly right. I was reflecting the other day going, you know, all these ego deaths, they can come with any of those, you know, I think there's 4 stages, and some people say 7 stages of grief. So that's where you see, you know, some of the anger, projection in yourself and other people. I mean, it's like being human, it's been a whipping post for too long. We're human, but we're divine human. And this is like there's no way anybody on this earth could tell me, even a master. We had a really interesting guy on before I went to Sedona, who had a story at like 20 years old. He was driving down the road and he met this dude, right, in Australia. And then he goes to India. He's called to India. You know, he's one of those that's been in the game like 20 years, and he meets the guy in person. So he was around some masters. He spent like 8 years there. But even someone like that, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think anybody has any idea of what this is going to be. Like, I mean, you can look at a lot of things, the symbology of a lot of things. And I'm not a big movie person, but, you know, I jump on Netflix the last few nights to distract myself. I tell myself I'm processing, but, you know, I guess in a way it's both. But every other movie is about this superhuman character, these Marvel comics. And, you know, there's just like, I'm really not watching movies, but kind of like, you know, receiving the feedback of what's being projected out there. And of course, there's the intention. Let's say maybe it's not in the best intention, but there's also that universal frequency that can't be denied. And so I can see that. I mean, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Are we going to be able to materialize and dematerialize? I mean, this is the story. It's not all this other BS, because anything outside of us really is a distraction. I was told last night, you know, as I was having my communion, like I said, okay, here's the human part. I'm presenting this part. I know this. I know that. Here's the human part. I miss my girl, man. I like to be able to touch her. And they said, well, you realize that this is just a program. and this went into the whole time and space thing, that you can hang on to this, but there's something far greater for you and for the both of you and for the collective and the whole 9 yards each time you let that go. So it's like it's like the human definition of love fades, and you could replace that word with a lot of things in our experience. And there's this higher thing that comes out, which just supersedes and defies all things in the matrix, right?
Yes. And what does it look like and when does it materialize? It's like I don't feel like I am not consciously traveling to other places yet, but I have friends that are telling me that that's happening, which is beautiful. I know that that's here. I know that that's coming. I know people are like experiencing this type of thing. What else was I going to say about that though? Oh, it feels like, honestly, since so here we are coming up on the solstice, right? We were all talking about 12/21. And in fact, like, I thought River was going to be born then, and she didn't. She came January 4th instead. And what seems to have taken place, though, at that moment is that this restructuring or this reorganization was taking place behind the scenes, where it seems like resonant beings were coming together, and we were maybe unconsciously and somewhat consciously doing something on a physical and an etheric level to change the frequencies and the story of the planet. It felt like Guardians in of the Galaxy type of shit. And that's what I feel like a lot of us have probably all been kind of doing in our own co-creation types of ways. And what I'm feeling like, what I've been being shown is, it's funny because we'd be doing some heavy stuff, like with money, with unity consciousness, with wounding, with all of these things. And I would be thinking that I'd wake up the next day and like see that reflected in the reality. And now I'm realizing it had to go through a process. There's a little bit of a lag time, right? Because there's some people that are still holding on to the time and space and gravity. And so what I'm seeing is that what's taken place, what we've all been doing behind the scenes the last 6 months is materializing.
Yeah.
And it feels like heaven on earth.
Yeah, absolutely it does. That's one thing I don't think you can deny, at least even given the projection, even given our shadows and our conditioning that are fading out, but that you do see in the community, there, at least like with the people that help us form this vortex on these shows, it's like you can say whatever you want to say. Everybody's got their bumps and bruises, but something's going on and it's not stopping. And I really felt like I got a big jolt of that at the Soulogy Fest when on the second night after 2 days of program or features, they put on some music, like a playlist, and I walked back to the tent after I took a break after the day, and there was like 10 women in there dancing, and I watched the energy. It was the anchoring of what's rising now, right? Like, why would it be any different? I mean, if you go back 10 years, 5 years, 1 week, and look at these groups and platforms, anywhere from 70 to 90% represented by females. So why would that be any different in terms of the energetics? I mean, I think we have to start giving respect to that. And I know we can get caught up in the feminine masculine thing, but in gender and, we're all androgynous, but, there's a reason that you're in a woman's body and I'm in a man's body, and we're all playing the different roles we are. Morgan's told me this a long time ago as I was trying to get past the gender thing and de-emphasize it. But everything is so physical here, we have to respect it. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm seeing this happen now. Like your energy, Shalom, I Am Light was just on. I mean, they're all different flavors, but they've got this thing. And maybe it's that link that y'all had, and maybe that's why you're leading the way with the women's intuition. That you were already in that picture you showed. You were more embodied up here, where the masculine energy, which is mostly coming up in a man, is embodied down in here. I really think we've made some great progress, and I think this handoff is occurring.
Yeah, I think honoring. I think the men have had a harder job to do here, to be honest, but we all had to do it. Like, we've all had to go through this fire, and it just seems like there was a feminine leading the way. But the thing is, it is beyond the masculine and feminine. Here's what I've been shown about masculine and feminine energy, because I think it's also important. It's like, we can get caught up sometimes. I know I've talked to you about this too, these masculine and feminine archetypes and the perception of what we think it looks like, what we think the divine masculine and feminine looks like, and like clearing all those attachments and stories also. And what
Yeah.
I'm kind of seeing, I used to think it was like a 50-50 thing, but to me, what the balance actually looks like, I was seeing this configuration, not to get attached to any type of numbers here, but of a 90-10 of like we all, male and female, are embracing that. It's the feminine surrender energy, intuition, the clear mind, right? Embracing the dark side. And then the 10% is the masculine, which is just the externalization of your inner peace, your inner surrender, your inner flow, your inner trust, your inner intuition, your inner remembering. And so the masculine just automatically knows when it's like automatic because we're so
Yeah.
surrendered to this, to the force that's like flowing through us instead of who we think we are and who we think we want to be and what we think we need to say versus like this total surrender to this magic that's flowing through our bodies and clearing any resistance.
That's a great description.
Yeah.
I've often said, I don't know how it works outside of this realm, but at this time in this place, it would only make sense. Like, so your figure of 90-10, which by the way, I looked at some disappointment last night with our YouTube channel, and it was back to 90-10. It'd been like 80-20. It started out like 95-5, years ago. And but yeah, I think that's accurate because if you look at, let's just say, what was the State of the Union pre-2012? Let's say that the consciousness, the reality, the experience, whatever, in the realm itself as living, breathing human beings was even 90-10 masculine to feminine. And so it would only make sense that the energy that is injected or infused into our reality be of, in a good way, imbalanced the other direction to bring us to an equilibrium. Morgan said for a long time that there's going to be a time when it looks like the women are leading the way. And as everything you hear, as time goes on, it takes on more and more meaning. And I can see that happening. Like there has to be, just as she surrenders in that 90%, there has to be a surrender, from the inverse. And in the paradoxical craziness of the universe, what is one is the other. But yeah, I can see that in a literal sense happening. And I think that'll be real interesting.
Yeah, I'm feeling that it's like a pole flip and then a stabilizing. So it doesn't stay. It's not from patriarchy to matriarchy. No, we're stabilizing that merge, that total union within the masculine and the feminine. So it isn't that there's just the women, right? It's the rise of the feminine in us all. It just sometimes feels like a little harder, difficult of an experience for the masculine because of this is the age that the men came in kind of experiencing that type of trauma story. It was it's the wound of repression. Like there's 6 core wounds of humanity and gene key 22. I think you carry gene key 22. And so we all have our piece of the pie, and it's collective and it's individual because we have to face our individual pieces and aspects of it. So we're looking to heal these wounds of guilt, of shame, of repression, of denial, of separation. And none of us are immune to having to go through that process.
I mean, there's no doubt about it that whether it be us looking at the opposite gender or the stereotypes, it's still another point of integration that's not going to go away. So it doesn't matter what we're looking at if we see ourselves as separate. But I get what you're saying, and I really resonate with that percentage because not that it's absolute or I'm right, but because it's almost like, I would say it in a different way, like layman's terms, the feminine side. So whether you're talking energy or for the most part embodied physical genders, got it first, right? Like they had the intuition, so they got it first. So they're like, okay, we're moving this shit, And so what happens is the others got to go. And at some point when they snap, all right, they go, oh shit, oh, we got it. It's like me watching those women anchoring in the feminine. My first thought, my whole body lit up and I thought, oh my God, this is what Morgan and all those like her have been leading us to. So it was my aha moment. And in that moment, now I feel like I'm in pretty good shape. I'm not saying I'm good, but in that moment, that masculine energy basically the knees buckle, you fall, you kind of fall to your knees and go, okay, I got it, but can you help me out here a little bit? Yeah, go ahead and lead, and let me get my strength up, and let me get my awareness and everything back to where it's supposed to be. And then we'll start the dance again, which I think is what we call new earth and new lives and new universes. This is what we're
Galactic
doing.
Renaissance. The
Yeah.
Galactic Renaissance. That's what I call
Yeah.
it. It's a beautiful love story.
It is. It
Mm-hmm.
absolutely is. It gives me chills. Yeah. And there's so many different, this is such a special place, because if you look at the red, black, white, yellow, brown, and all the different civilizations and cultures that we can actually go, oh, that was here. We have proof. It's not coming from a channel. But the reality is, as I go, especially this year, as I start to interact with more people just in the normal course of things, I can see that multi-lineage in everyone, and there is uniqueness. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's the human lineage. I think it's both the human lineage and the soul lineage. It's like we're all, finding out new stuff about ourselves that we didn't know by, coming into contact with energies that were unknown to us. It's no different than me meeting you, or, you meeting your beloved, a
Right.
river.
Oh my gosh, River, she's so cute. You know, it is. It's like we have to. River, Eduardo. I keep hearing this, we all came for the beautiful love story. I know people get caught up in like, do I have a twin or twin flames? And we run around and we try to make it all happen. But it's like, we absolutely all came from one that became two. And so,
Yeah.
but in order to get there, the only way, right, is that true balance and leaving this individuation behind to merge with the beloved, first and foremost within the self, to really bring in
Yeah.
that union. I don't know
Yeah.
what else. I'm
Which
kind of,
means there doesn't have to be a cause. There doesn't have to be a label. In fact, it's not
yes.
like we know. I want to say this. There are a lot of different descriptions, modalities, processes, philosophies, and such. It's not like we know what to do, because
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing, God itself or Goddess itself, it's not a noun. It's actually the motion of creation. It's the remerging of the two into one, and then the third energy, the trinary, and all that. I mean, it's a space where, as we're breaking it down in our experience, the human is the hero, and meaning the human is on point. And if it's not on point, it's getting real close to being on point. And when it's on point, and all the multidimensional aspects are contained and balanced within us, then the universe starts to pick up code from us. And these are the new templates, the new blueprints, the new gene keys. I mean, everything's a remix, right?
I love remixes. Exactly that. The new gene keys, like we're beyond these 64 codes. I've even as much as I love the gene keys and they're super fun and I know a lot about them, I'm like, okay, now it's for me personally. I'm like, I feel like I've graduated. Like this is a history book now. Now we're talking about getting into Christ consciousness, cosmic consciousness, galactic DNA. And so we use this human DNA to understand. In fact, we're connected right now to gene key 36 in the galactic. So that's the thing, is the Mayan information has the time and space, and the I Ching has the physical amino acid structures. And we're merging these two, synthesizing these systems together to break out of time and space and understand how it all works. And the 36 is talking about the dark night of the soul, and it's talking about becoming human and honoring, the human that we are and all the experiences that we've gone through, and like embracing them without the above and beyond judgment. Like really, that is the magic, is that we could love and accept ourselves for whoever we are and clear any old templates about what a spiritual person looks like or what a healed person looks like, and even that type of stuff. And like, clearing any guilt and shame. Right now, the 36 is really talking about like hidden sexuality or addictions or judgments around sexuality, and like clearing all of that shame, those aspects, which is, I mean, one of the most common things that I feel like is going on out there. But over the last few days, I've been being shown it's like almost like a demagnetize of the root and the sacral chakra, no longer controlling the reality
Yeah.
and pulling us forward. We're moving into being pulled through heart resonance. And we don't need to know anything. We actually just need to surrender. If we could all just remember love and acceptance and surrender. And then other thing you were talking about, like, well, the image that I've been seeing about when the darkness comes through and we don't judge it or attach to it, and we just let it go through like a musical notes. The way I like to talk about it is like you put on a CD back when we had CDs, and sometimes you have a favorite song, and sometimes you have the song you're like, man, how'd that one get on there? And then if you're watching YouTube, maybe there's a commercial in the end if you don't pay for the whatever, and it's like, let it all play without attachment or reaction to what it is, and you're using your body to transmute this collective energy without taking anything personal. And to me, this is what inner light work and transmuting dark energies looks like. And on the solar eclipse, I woke up with the sun, and she was telling me a beautiful song, and then she said the solar goddess has fully awakened. And then I was also hearing that we were detaching or clearing up like the distorted sexual templates is what I was kind of seeing, where we've been controlled by those impulses and those stories and judgments and all of that. And then I was being
that's spot
shown,
on.
Right? That's what I was feeling solar.
For me, that's spot on. And I understood it was a collective. I told Morgan this last night. I said, I didn't tell you this. There's a lot of stuff going on, but I haven't mentioned anything because what's the point? You know, I mean, it is what it is. It's all good. But I told her in particular that there was it's this period you're talking about, like 5 days, where the sexual distortion, sexual violation, child molestation, the whole 9 yards came back. And one thing I picked up on it, which is what I told her, that it felt like it was entirely or mostly from ancestral lineage or previous incarnations, like a whole lot, right? Mm-hmm. But that through that understanding or knowing, I realized it was very collective. And I said, I bet you that there's a lot of men out there either conscious of what, probably more unconscious, because I'd have to say I'm even unconscious, or I would have known already, that are this energy is moving, at a minimum, moving inside of them. Coming to the surface through all the different ways. And maybe this is the part where the masculine energy gets knocked on its knees and says, oh, I get it, but this is a big one. Let me take the helm and let me get my shit together, and I'll meet you when I'm home, something like that. But yeah, it was big. It was strange too, because it was pretty graphic. So it was deep. Wow. I know it was deep.
I didn't have it graphic, but I felt this wave come through, and it was about an hour long. And I literally just went into this dark, low place, and I was like, where is this coming from? Because I'm never in that place, to be honest. And it was just like, there wasn't any story tied to it. It was this feeling of darkness and energy in a wave. And it happened for about an hour, and it felt like it was, Eduardo was experiencing it as well. And then all of a sudden, it was like it just came and it went. And after it was done, I just told Eduardo, I was like, I've never had it happen before like this. I was like, what in the fuck was that? I said it like 5 times. I was like, what in the fuck was that? And I literally felt like the sun was purifying something, and our bodies and our vessels were being used to bring this information through. And again, we don't have to, it's just allowing it to go and not getting attached. It comes and it goes very quickly versus like following it down a trail and letting it take over your life for who knows how long.
Yeah. And this is where it's at. It's not excuse my French, because my buddy's here, too true. And I'm not afraid to have you on. If you want to come on again, we'll do it. But it's not in the fucking narratives. I don't give a shit how deep and dark they look. I've been in hell in the etheric level for 1,000 nights twice back in the day. Sodomized, pissed on. We've all been there. We've all done that. The real work is what you're talking about. And it's not, there is not a foolproof process or modality, because everybody's different. Everybody's made up of different frequencies, different perspective. But the bottom line is it's about the internal expansion through the desire of perpetuating that I am made in the fucking image. Right. So what can hurt me? Now, at a human level, it's still there, and it's the one that's going to be on point, and it's going to be that Marvel comic action hero. It is a supernatural human being. But how did it feel? This stuff came in. I looked at how it affected my life. I looked at the sexual distortion, which I've been there, done that, and you know, and I thought I cleared it, and it wasn't that it wasn't clear, but it came in, and maybe it's one last time, and it said, "I'm not going anywhere. I'm in your field day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, and the only way that you are going to get past this is to claim me as you." I'm just paraphrasing. So I brought it in. I let it take me for 2-3 days. It was like Groundhog Day, and I finally came out of it and went, "Okay, I am that."
Crystal clear,
Okay,
crystal clear.
and you put it over here. It's not over there. It's in me. Everything's in me. It really is. And like you said about the chemical changes in the body that somebody you were quoting or something, that you feel it. You feel it. You know, you feel the gurgle of the the energy moves of your chakras or the electricity in your body. This is the real stuff. This is
Yeah.
not about, it's not about borders, and it's not about wars, and it's not about any type of whatever the hell you think. It's not. It's having the responsibility to take on the responsibility of creating Earth yourself. Really.
This is true light work, and this is the true hero. When you face your own shit, when you own it, when you get real with it, when you can love and accept yourself for exactly who you are, when you can take on your piece. And I'll throw something out there, because I was being reflected a couple things in my reality over the last month that I found interesting, and it's the externalization of our shadows on the other. And I had one person, for example, tell me that she was like having feelings for another man, and so it was like an agenda from the gray aliens. And then I had another person that had told me, that there's this bad entity that comes into her body that forces her to say mean things to her partner that she doesn't really mean. And I said, well, that's really not how it works. Like, you got to own what you have. Like, we have this tendency when there's something we don't like about ourselves to externalize it on some dark force outside of us, and we'll never transmute anything that way. We have to own everything that comes up within us and be like, oh, interesting, I'm having feelings for another man. What is this really about? And then, oh, interesting, I'm having this temptation, or so what's this really about? In a neutral observation, nothing's personal here, and just kind of watching. It doesn't mean you got to act on anything.
No, and certainly not by old programs.
Right.
I mean, we're making this up, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, we didn't come down here to go, okay, we're going to go down here and go through programs of suffering and pain and all the other bullshit, right? And come out of it with what? Just having gone through it? Well, actually, these deep emotional points of context that we've collectively created and experienced are valuable seeds of code for the universe. But it's not in what we experienced, it's in what we do in the remix. We combine that Akashic record, combine it with the experience, and now this is the place that we're at. And if I'm made in the image, then it's pretty cut and dry. Everything I see is God, Goddess, and everything I am is God, Goddess. And there's a relationship that I can actually create. I can actually create this earth in alignment with universal will. And I can do it as one soul, because how do I know there's not 8 billion different earths? This is my domain. I am that. And I think this is virgin territory, especially in a density this thick, right?
Virgin purity. And that's a question that leads to how do we, who's really seen 7.5 billion people here? Like, it's interesting. We talk about being quantum, we talk about time being an illusion, we talk about things being a hologram, but then it's like, do we believe it? Do we see it like that? Because now what I've been starting to see, and some of the timeline traveling work that I've been doing would be like, next thing you know, I'm in September, I'm right before September 11th, and I can see that there's a frozen overlay in the genetics of the collective of this trauma experience of September 11th. And this was just like a couple months ago, right? So I was seeing how there was a snapshot frozen in time of a trauma experience, a holographic memory, you could say, of, the planes crashing through the towers, and like the people screaming and jumping out and dying, and like the war and the territory and all of that. So that was programmed in the cells in the DNA. And so I was being taken back to that time like a geneticist. And I was seeing that within the genes as really just corrupted data or code. And I was like, okay, we can go ahead and we can melt this frozen in time snapshot that's still kind of an overlay that's affecting our projected reality, because there's an unconscious belief system there, or an unconscious memory there. And so we can literally like zap that like fire, for an example, and melt that thing, because water has memory, right? So we're even seeing the frozenness of that. And so we're going into these snapshots in time that are within the genes of the human. And I'm working with it, it seems like, on a collective level. It's not anything I'm intentionally doing, but I'll be taken to these times, to these places, and then kind of doing like a genetic type of surgery, you could say, and even clearing any, like there's this gene key 32, which is talking about ancestral reverence. And it's like, you know, being able to take the magic from the ancestors and honor that, and also to be able to even leave the ancestral trauma stories alone, because we are the ancestors, and we keep holding on to these stories. And we keep holding on to the slavery, we keep holding on to the separation, we keep holding on to the trauma. Therefore, we keep creating the trauma, because we're creating a projected reality based on whatever is in our conscious and unconscious self. So we just need to make the unconscious conscious and own it and see it and merge it back with the divine.
That's right. And this is the thing. It's like, you know, I'm like a lot of people, my body's talking, and I don't, I'm probably in defense. I don't really like the word addiction, but because I look at it as distraction or programming, because they're all distractions, right? I mean, but it's like letting go. It's like making a choice. You got all the information energetically. You know what fits and what doesn't. It's just like you said. If you've got any dredges of imbalances in your experience, they're not going to go away until you, one way or the other, bring them into equilibrium. You know. But again, I think we have spent so much time talking on conspiracy platforms, disclosure platforms, Lightworker, Starseed platforms about the narratives, whether it be Galactic War, whether it be what's gone on. That's not the fucking point. And it's also not, we've beat the horse dead, as the saying goes. What we should be talking about is all of these people, the vast majority of them females, who for 5 and 10 and 15 and 20 and 25 and 30 years have been doing the work, have been embodying and anchoring the sacred wisdom that's so far above all this narrative and all this bullshit, okay, that it's permeating throughout the world now. And I don't think that Todd's going to have to do anything out of the ordinary to bring that energy forward, because it's going to be happening all over the world. It's already happening, and it's done in a totally opposite way of what we've seen as power. It's in anonymity. It doesn't want attention. It knows its power. It's got the balls of the universe. I mean, it's happening. And the choice for each one of us is, do I want to continue to live in this narrative and perpetuate it, which is all the narratives are separation, every single one, but one. What? The one timeline. Which, if we're in the one timeline, we're all up in the air and we're one big ball of light going. That's our home.
That's bliss. That's heaven. That's ecstasy. Yeah.
But we created the playgrounds because we got nothing to lose. We got ourselves. We got our own backs. You know.
When we remember that, like this, yeah, it becomes more fun when we remember that. And one of the things I like to say to people is like, you crystallize with crystal eyes. Like you see everything with crystal clear clarity and perfection, and everything is you. And when you see them like that, it's kind of like what Jesus said, right? Let he without sin cast the first stone. Or we're even clearing all that stuff about, really need to clear this idea of what like perfection looks like. Perfection is loving and accepting yourself for whoever you are. Like if you like to go have a good time, if you like to go do this or that, it's got to start there. It's got to start with love and acceptance and compassion, and like being free to be your authentic self. There isn't some like holy thing you're supposed to look like and hold. And that's the thing we need to shake is there's some place to get to besides just here is who I am. And you can do that without being like, this is who I am. And I think sometimes our fear of like going into, without proving it, but sometimes when we're like, our fear of going into unity consciousness is we're afraid that we'll lose our individual self. But no, that's the thing, is we get to play.
The opposite.
So you can go up and you can touch the void, and then you can say, you know what? I can come back down and I can play with all my beautiful divine creation. The dolphin is my beautiful divine creation. The policeman is my beautiful divine creation. Like the president is my beautiful divine. We came here to play, and we're going beyond duality now. We got to get out of it, or we keep perpetuating and keep holding on to it into the trinitized love. And it's this, right? It's got, we narrative mind to unlock these gates.
Yeah.
And so there's the collective narrative and the individual narratives.
That's right. There's many narratives. There's in every single time we tap into the Akashic, we're looking at narratives. We're looking at, this is what we're creating, So it's time to get jiggy with it. All right. So we're yeah, right on. And so we got Franco Di Nicola in 13 minutes. That ought to be interesting. Great shows with Shalom, I Am Light, and this beautiful sister Alisha. Yeah. Alisha Keys, I just noticed you changed your name. Key as in keys.
Yeah.
Keys.
The keys, the secrets to the universe. Loving and accepting yourself and being real, being authentic, showing up, doing the light work.
We didn't even talk about your little sisterhood triad, but yeah, let me know if you guys want to come on and chill and just talk about stuff whenever you're ready. No pressure, no worries. If and when it resonates, okay?
Yeah, for sure. When that comes up and, everyone's getting together, it looks like Helen Quell's posting something about the Shasta thing and everybody gathering. It's interesting. I've got my friend Robin arriving from Hawaii today and my children arriving tomorrow. And there's quite a group that seems to be coming together in the physical. It feels like organizing and anchoring for the solstice, and it's big. It's bigger than all the things that we've been like, just wait, this solstice is going to be big, this eclipse is going to be big, but no, this one is, and it's different.
So the solstice is what?
21st. Yeah.
21st.
It's just about to get real.
Man, I tell you what, I just close out with this. You were talking about in the beginning of the show, you were talking to some degree or another about basically the moon cycle. And I remember 10 years ago when I woke up, there was quite a few things that came in at once. But one of them was, as these spirit guides came in, there was like, always watch the moon. And it's taken me like a long, long time. Now, Franco talks about that the moon is no longer a projector of the inverted matrix. And a year and a half ago, it started to be turned and used the other way, basically, to enhance. But there's something about the seasons within the seasons, right? There's something about the cycle of that. I think you said 28 days. So there's something that's becoming more prominent. And I think if you look back at if you research like indigenous tribes, Aboriginal tribes, in many, many different texts and histories that that's what they followed. As the sun is, really what Jesus is patterned after is, it's all right there. Right. So it's just like the rhythm. It's just a rhythm, like the cicadas. Right. I love you. Thank you.
Like the cicadas. Love you.
I love you.
Thank you so
take
much.
care and tell the girls whenever y'all are ready. Let me know or let Monique know or Morgan or somebody.
Okay. Sounds perfect. We'll see you soon. Much love, everybody.
Yeah. And I'm sorry we didn't, but I just want to say, best to you and to River and to your beloved and to all your kids, and enjoy yourself and all your friends and have a great solstice.
Thanks. We'll be holding it down in the crystal jungle. See you guys.
Yeah. Oh, I feel for you. You're suffering so bad over there. Take care.
I made love to my suffering and it brought me into heaven on earth. I don't know what else to say.
Well, you're at the 0 point, according to that one text.